Hi, everyone. I'm so excited that you are here checking out. This is the first of several PDs I've scheduled to talk about different things to support you during this distance learning time. So today we're here to talk about Wakelet, and I'm super excited to share some ideas about how you can use Wakelet to create differentiated lessons. So thank you to those of you that are joining live. If you're here with us, great. If you're watching this on replay, I appreciate you tuning in, and please drop some comments in the chat. Let me know you're here, or if you have any questions, do let me know. So let's go ahead and dive in here. For those that I don't know, my name is Jennifer Hall, and I'm an educational technology specialist. You found my channel and found this video. I support teachers in Atlanta Public Schools, and I'm super excited to share one of my favorite tools, Wakelet. I happen to be a Wakelet community member and ambassador, and it was apropos. Today I got an email that said this was my 1-year anniversary of being a Wakelet community member, and here I am talking about Wakelet. So super excited to share with you guys. So goals for our time today, we're going to learn about the features of Wakelet, and we're going to gain some ideas for using Wakelet to engage your diverse learners. So if you're not familiar with Wakelet, we're going to start with an overview of what is Wakelet. Maybe you've heard of it, but you don't know much about it. So I'm going to talk about Wakelet, and then we'll talk about ways that you can use it with your students. So for those of you who don't know, Wakelet is a free platform. Of course, that's my favorite price. It's free for all educators, anyone that wants to sign up for one. So you can get a free Wakelet account, and your students can use it as well if they're 13 or older, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the best part is the goal of using a Wakelet is to grab anything off the internet. Anything that is web-based, you can embed there. So super, super cool tool, and we're gonna dive in and talk about how you can use it. So the gist of it, the main things you need to know is that you can bookmark anything. So Wakelet started out as a bookmarking tool, and then they realized that educators were using it for so many cool different ways, and they've maximized on that. But the main thing is you can bookmark anything. So a lot of people were using it to bookmark their favorite recipes or their travel plans, or favorite books or articles or anything like that, or a lot of stuff from social media. The other thing is that you can organize and curate your resources. So the best part is that I can put packages together. I can create a Wakelet collection that has things that I want. So if I'm teaching a unit in science and I want everything that has to do with weathering and erosion, I can put everything in one collection on that. And the curation piece is you're going around and you're scouring for resources. Educators are always looking for stuff and saying, hey, I want, gather all this stuff together, but I can't keep it organized and I don't know how to share it to my students. That's the other powerful thing about Wakelet. And the third part that makes it really powerful is that you can collaborate with educators or with your students, and you can share. So once you've pulled all those resources together or you've created that lesson, you can share it very easily. And we'll talk about how you can do that. The other thing is it integrates with so many different apps. The apps list keeps growing. And so that makes it even more powerful to be able to use it with different tools. If you're a Google Classroom user or you're a Microsoft Teams user, you can definitely use Wakelet with both. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to sign up. I do have this screenshotted in a presentation, and I've actually put the link to this presentation in the description of this video, so you can check it out. The first thing to do is sign up. If you don't have an account, you want to definitely do that. And if you want to click along while I'm talking, that'd be great too. So you want to connect it with either your Microsoft or your Google account. So I've already got mine logged in. I'm going to use my Google account. And then you're going to want to create a profile. So the other thing that's cool about Wakelet is that it's also like Pinterest in the sense that you can have people follow you and you can follow other people. So you want to have a front-facing profile and some information about you. And that'll be on that homepage where all of your collections live. And then you're going to want to create your first collection. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, creating a collection. And then we'll talk about some different features of Wakelet and how you can use it with your students. So what's really cool is these are all of the types of resources that can be added to a Wakelet. So when I said anything that lives on the web, you can access it in a Wakelet collection. So you can just paste in a URL from any website that you want, or you can add text and we'll look at some options for that. You can add in YouTube videos. So you could make a playlist of videos you want your students to watch. You can pull in social media tweets. You can pull in bookmarks. So if you've already saved it using Wakelet, you can definitely pull from your bookmarks. You can add in images, so you can have graphic organizers for students to get them thinking. It could be a map. It could be a cell, or example of a planet, or anything, an image that you want to upload as a starter or a hook to get your students engaged or get them thinking. You can also upload a PDF. You can add anything from your Google Drive or anything from your OneDrive. So it doesn't matter if you're a Google school or a Microsoft school, or you're both. You have access to your resources in both your Google Drive and in your OneDrive. And the other really cool integration is that it has Flipgrid right there built in. So these are all of the things that you can add into a collection. And we're going to do a little dive in and see some examples here. So when we talk about text, I can add any text, and that's going to be where you're going to add your instructions, or it can be your content. So I can give my instructions for what I want my students to read or do. And, or I can copy and paste text from a PDF or an article, like from Newsella or from a BrainPop article, or Time, any resource. If you want your students reading current events articles or things, you can copy and paste the text in here. And by doing that, I can customize it, I can format it, and I can also use Immersive Reader with it. So that's where this becomes really powerful and makes it accessible for your students. So we're going to look at a couple of examples here in a minute. So some other things is that you can change the look and feel of your Wakelet. So you can have it be a media view, so you can see everything that's included. So I love Google Classroom, and I've got Google Classroom users that I've talked to about this issue. When you put an assignment in Google Classroom, and you might attach multiple links, right? You will have possibly 5 or 6 links for the day in there. And the problem is that you don't know, the kids don't necessarily know, well, which one am I supposed to click on first? Or if you're one of those teachers that you're proactive and you plan your lesson and you're like, okay, I'm going to add in like these 10 links all under one assignment or under one material, but then you put them in out of order. Google Classroom doesn't let you change the order once you put the link in there. You got to delete it. You'd have to start from scratch and then reorder them and add them. By doing it in here, if I put it into a Wakelet collection, I can reorder and change the look and feel of the resources or the links that I want folks to look at. Okay, so that really is a powerful piece of Wakelet as well. I can have a compact view, a grid view, or a mood board, which kind of gets into like a choice board option. Okay, so that's kind of the look and feel of it. So the other piece that I said is really important here is the fact that it has Immersive Reader. So I don't know if you're familiar with HyperDocs, but I think HyperDocs is a really cool way to engage your learners and differentiate your instruction. So the idea of HyperDocs, if you're not familiar, is taking a Google Doc or a Google slide deck and creating an interactive lesson. So putting everything in there, it's based on your standards or your goals, and students move through that HyperDoc to complete a lesson. It could be an activity for the day, or it could be the lesson for the week. Or I've seen ones that were for an entire unit of study where everything is in there with all of the resources. That's great. And I love Google Docs, and Google Slides are fantastic, and I do magical things with them. But the problem is that it's not as accessible as we'd like it to be. And because we can create a HyperDoc inside of Wakelet, I've now got that Immersive Reader option. So that means any instructions I put in there have now become accessible to that Immersive Reader tool. Okay? So I actually created a HyperDoc lesson inside of a Wakelet as an example. I was doing a session on HyperDocs at a conference last year, and I started playing around. I said, this would really level up a HyperDoc. So this is, to me, a HyperDoc lesson on steroids, when you can add in all the elements of a 5E lesson and have all of the links and resources in there. So with that being said, I actually just created this template, which is a HyperDoc template for the 5E model. The other cool thing is that you can make copies of templates or collections that are available in Wakelet. So this one is available. If you click on mine, and I'm going to share this out with you, you can click on it, you can make a copy of it, and literally all you have to do is add in your elements that you want to add into your 5E lesson. Okay. So there's different ways you can use Wakelet, and then you can choose your privacy. So you can make it be public, which means anybody can see it and it's searchable. And we're going to search some here in a minute. You can have it unlisted, which means only me and the people I share the link with. So maybe you're creating a resource that is just for your students, and you really don't want to share it out with everybody. Maybe you're like, oh, this is for my special ed students and I don't want anyone else to have access to this. That is totally accessible, optional. You can make it unlisted. So let's take a look at the other option. Private means only I'm going to see it. So if you really want to make a collection that says, hey, this is just for me, nobody else is going to see it, you can have some private collections. And I have a couple of those as well. So you can choose what your access is and the visibility of your collections. So the key features here are that collaboration, the ability to copy a collection. Now, not all collections have been open to be copied. Some people are like, this is mine, you can use it, but you can't copy it. That immersive reader again, and the fact that you can embed it. That's the other piece that's really powerful, is that I can take that collection, I can include the link into a Google Classroom, into a Microsoft Team, but I can also embed that collection into my website. So if you're creating resources for parents, as we're preparing for this, this next school year, we don't know what it looks like. You're pulling resources together for distance learning and what it's going to look like. You're doing some videos for parents and you want to have a one-stop shop. You could create that in Wakelet and you could embed that collection into your website. Some ways that teachers can use it. There's templates for newsletters, and we're going to look at some of those. Collecting resources for lesson planning, obviously documenting your PD for interactive lessons. I have to point out there was a really cool way that it was used by one of my teachers, and I think Miss Nunnick is tuning in right now, is she was doing a coding activity while we were out for distance learning, and she had all the kids creating different coding experiences, and she wanted to have a one-stop shop where she could go and see everybody's coding project and that their classmates would also be able to see it. So what she did was she created a collaborative Wakelet collection, and everybody was able to add in what they'd created. They couldn't delete or take anyone else's away, but they could add in theirs, and then in one-stop shop, everybody could see those coding projects. Such a cool and powerful way to use Wakelet. So some ways that students can use Wakelet. If they're 13 or over, and Miss Nunnick, when she was working on it, she was working with her high schoolers, so not a problem. They could have their own account, no problem. So if you're middle and high or upper, 8th through 12th grade, kids can have their own account. They can sign up Microsoft or Google if they want. If they're under 13, what you can do is you can be the owner of the collection and let students log in as you and add to the collection. And they don't have to have an account to add to it. They just wouldn't have their own account. But they can obviously use it for digital portfolios and some assignments as well. Some ways, if you are a library or coach, I've got a tech coach friend, special ed techie. She does some amazing stuff with her Wakelet collection. She does like a potty PD and she puts everything in a Wakelet so you can easily access it. I've seen librarians that are using it to pull reading resources, support resources, teaching, if it's maybe testing resources, all of that can be added in there. The newsletter piece is super cool because you can create a newsletter and create a template and just change out the content when you want to share out new content. And so your parents can follow along. And I also love the idea of the digital library. So there's lots of options here. Okay. So what's really cool is once you join with Wakelet and you sign up for their emails, they will send you suggested collections. And so this is one from a couple of weeks ago where they give you some tips on creating a virtual classroom because everybody's talking about distance learning. There was a section on arts and culture and science. There was another section on Twitter in the classroom because a lot of people are like, do I use Twitter or don't I use Twitter? I'm not quite sure. And then using Wakelet to organize instructions. So once you join and you opt in for the newsletter and you become a member of the Wakelet community, you're going to get these really cool lists. They send out frequent emails with suggested lists that you can take a look at. So you can see what collections people are creating. Okay. So I had the opportunity to write a blog post for Wakelet talking about how you can level up with Wakelet. And it was all about what we're talking about now, using it to create a HyperDoc differentiated lesson. So there is a community and student ambassador program that you can participate in. As I said, today is my 1-year anniversary of being a community member. Super cool. and you can become an ambassador. So I want to dive in and show you guys, and we're going to click around and show you some things inside of Wakelet. I want to point out that there is a mobile app that you can check out as well. So, all right, so that's kind of the overview. What is Wakelet as we're getting ready to dive in and take a look at the behind the scenes inside of my Wakelet account. Questions so far, comments so far, anybody? And I appreciate those of you that have tuned in live and are checking things out. And if you're watching this later, hopefully you're going to ride the Wakelet wave with us. So I've logged into my account, and now we're on the back side here. This is my homepage here. As you can see, I can have my profile here. As you can see who's following you, and you can start following folks. And I can take a look at some of my collections I have. So here's that HyperDoc 5e model that I shared with, that I mentioned, and you guys can go in and grab a copy of that. I can go in here, and I've got some on HyperDocs. I've got some resources I've kept. But remember, I said that you can have public. You're going to see that world. That means other people can see it. Or you might have it locked and have it be private. And it's unlisted, which means like this one is unlisted. Like if I want to share the link, people can access it. So you do have options here in terms of the visibility of your collection. So let's go up here, and we'll kind of start from scratch here with creating a collection. So when I click on collection here, it's going to ask me a couple things. I want to add a cover image, and you can upload one of your own, and there is a specific size for the cover image as well as the background image, and you can easily swap that out, change it out if you want, make a template that you use as often as you want, or you can choose from the library, and the library actually lets you pull from excuse me, unsplash.com. So I'm just going to type in tech and see what we get. Okay. And as you can see, I've got different options, and I'm just going to grab one for right now. I kind of like that robot right there. So I'm just going to grab that, and there it added it as my cover image. So now I can go down here and I can edit, or I can have it be a full cover, a half cover, or I can hide it all together. So if I do a half cover, it's just going to not be as, take up as much screen real estate. So now I can give a title to my collection here. So we're going to call this a Tech Tips 401 demo here, so we know which one it is. I'm going to give a description, demo PD, okay? And I'm going to go down here, and I'm ready to start adding to my collection. So if I click on this plus right here, this is where I can start adding those resources. So if I wanted to copy and paste, or I can also just type in the URL. I'm going to put in the Tech Tips 411, one too many one there. And I'm just going to add that in right there. So I can copy and paste from a website that I want to add in there. So just like that, now it's giving me a preview. So again, I mentioned HyperDocs is great in Google Docs, but the problem with that is kids don't see what exactly they're clicking on. Now they have added the hover over option that if you hyperlink something in a Google Doc, it does allow you to hover, and then you kind of see what it is. But this makes it more visual. So this is really good for your emerging learners, your struggling readers that need that visual cue of what am I clicking on? What am I doing? So I can add in that. So if I click on here, I can go to my other options, and I can add in text. So as I said, you can add in all different types of text. Okay. And I'm terrible at typing. Then I have some options. I can make it be a headline, a second headline, or I can have it just be regular text. So that allows me to have like, pay attention, here's instructions, step 1. And I can bold, italicize. I can include bullet points. I can use an emoji extension and add in emojis to give me bullet points. I can go in here and I can format, center, all of that good stuff. But I can also hyperlink. So now I've got the power of putting instructions and hyperlinking to other resources. So if you want to hyperlink to a collaborative Google Doc, you can do so. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click right there. And here's where the power comes in of using Wakelet is I can easily reorder. So I'm going to click here. So now it's compressed everything. If I wanted that to be first, I want to move it to the top. I can do that. So if you were formatting a Google Doc, unfortunately, you'd have to go in and copy and paste and shift it and reformat it and all of that. Here, I can very easily just go here and say, okay, move this one up, move that one down, move it around, copy. I don't have to do all the copy and paste, which makes it a little bit easier. Okay. So I like that easy reorder. I can drag and move it up to the top. Okay. So let's take a look here at some other options here. So when I go and I want to add plus, I can, as soon as I see that plus, I can just click on that and add in the next element I want to add. So I can add in YouTube channels if YouTube is available for you. I can also add in, again, those PDFs, anything from Google Drive or anything from OneDrive. Okay. So I go ahead and add in all of my resources. I'm going to look at a couple of my options here to make sure that I set this up for how I want to share this. I can, right here is where I'm going to choose whether I want to allow somebody to copy this. Okay. If I allow someone to copy it, this comes in handy if you're working with your PLCs and you say, hey, I started a collection for our first unit. Go ahead and make a copy of it. And that way you guys can add to it or subtract from it or whatever. So you can allow copying. Okay. I can choose this privacy. So I'm going to go ahead and make this public. That means anyone can search for it. I could allow it to be copied. I could add a background image, which makes it pop and stand out a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and click done. So once I'm back here, there's where my options are. I can add in contributors. So if I want to have a contributor, there's several ways that I can have that person work with me. So if I'm working with a co-teacher, or I want my students to contribute to the Wakelet I've created. Okay. So if I go here, I can copy that code and I can share that out in Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. I could copy the code that takes you directly there. I could go up here and share via email, share it to people that I'm connected with on Wakelet. I could also go ahead and manage my contributors. So if I had somebody else in here, maybe I only wanted them to have access to make some initial edits, but after that, I want to remove them. I could do that here as well. So that's how I can add contributors. I can also go over here to this 3 dots, and here's some other options. I can choose to embed it. Like I said, you can put it on your website if you want. I can export it as a PDF. So if it's something that's printable that you want to share, so maybe this is a portfolio option and you want to have a digital, you want to print it to a PDF so you can check it out. You can set up notifications. So if someone, want to know when there's updates or any changes, you can do that as well. The analytics lets you see how many people have looked at it, which is kind of cool. Here's the other piece. So my folks that are Google Classroom users or Microsoft Teams user, very, very easy for me to grab this link. I could copy and paste this, but I can also push it directly to my Google Classroom. So after I put this together, I've got my initial resources. So maybe this is your getting started at the beginning of the year, some initial reading lists or some tutorial videos that you want students to engage in before the start of your class. You could share that out in Google Classroom. So I can push Google Classroom and I can push it out. So I'm going to do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. And we're going to go with this right here so you guys can see what I'm doing. There we go. So I can go ahead and share this to my classroom. I could pick the class I want this to go to. Just as if you were making any type of Google assignment, you're going to choose the action. I could say this is just a material. I can make an announcement. I can ask a question. I can just post it out and do that. I can also connect it and push it out to Teams as well. So that is a really powerful thing that you can do. So a lot of teachers have said, all right, so I've made a Wakelet collection. Break it down for me. When we do our lesson planning, and I'm a former language arts teacher, so I used to teach gifted, regular ed, and special ed, and sometimes all in one class. So I would plan for the middle, right? So you plan for the middle, and then you differentiate up and down based on what your students need. So what that does is that allows you to create that middle collection. And when you create your middle collection, you can then very easily differentiate with the content. So you could say, hey, I'm going to switch this out and I'm going to change the content. Maybe the article needs to be changed or adjusted for one particular student. And then you could share that differentiated content with your students. So I could go in here and make a copy of it. So after I've made that initial plan, created that initial collection, I could do that. So I had one of my science teachers, and I think I see Ms. Cannon's on here too. She was using this to gather all of her resources to share for her science classes. And I think she made several different collections based on the needs of her students. So that's a great option is you plan here for that initial collection, and then I might differentiate my content. Okay. So I can always go back here and edit that collection and make any changes. if I need to. Okay. So that's how we create, that's how we share. That's great. But also, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can also do a little searching here and see what we can find. So I'm going to go to this home page right here, and I can search my own collections here. Okay. I can also go to I'm going to go to my profile here, and I can double check that I've got all my good information there. But let's go to the search at this top. So I'm going to search in here for any kind of topic or that I'm looking at. So for example, I worked with a social studies teacher, and they were talking about civil rights. And so they searched civil rights. And let's take a look and see what we got. So already I've got some collections I can go through and take a look. I can see whether or not, so this one's got 39 items in it, and I'm going to just take a look at it and see what it's got. And I can see at this point, if I want to save it, I can save it. If I want to follow this person because I like what they've created, I can take a look here and I can see some information. So this is geared towards elementary school. It might not be what you want, but I can choose to save it if I want. Or maybe I saw it and thought, you know what? I know who could use this. I can share that information out. So this particular collection is not available to make a copy, but we're going to look at some ones that we can. So let's go ahead and go back one here and take a look at some others. I think here, this one might be one. I'd done a little dive here before. This one's just a save. Again, you can see, you can follow folks, you can save it. But notice, anytime there's that text, that's the important thing. That's that immersive reader. If I click on this as a learner, it's going to pull up that immersive reader option for me. And I can, now I've made this more accessible for my students. And if you're not familiar with immersive reader, it's a really great tool that allows students to be read to. It allows you to adjust the text on the page. It allows you to translate it to different languages. So this one, it won't let me copy, but that's all right. Let's go take a look at one I know that we can. So I'm going to go back here to my home page here, and I'm following some folks. And I want to share this example of how it's been used and templates have been created. Okay. This educator, Ms. Flanagan, has some great templates, and she has these available for you to copy. So if I go in here, I can look at here if I wanted to create a June newsletter. I mentioned that as one of the options you can do with a Wakelet. So you can do kind of an in the news, what's going on in your classroom right now. Hers allows you to copy. As you can see here, I'm going to make a copy of it, and then I can make changes to it. She's got everything already included. I've got the text here. It gives them instructions, copy it. Greetings, important dates, reminders. She's even got the emojis in there for you. So you can start from scratch. You don't have to start from scratch. You actually have a template to start with. So I think it's a really cool option if you want to search for ones that you have. So I mentioned that you can make copies. Here's that HyperDoc lesson that I created. So this is a template which you're able to copy. And I've already set it up with, here's the HyperDoc template, make a copy of it. Here's the engage with some instructions on what you can add in here. Here's the explore, where you're going to add some information. The explain, elaborate, evaluate. And I learned at one of my schools, Grady, they also added a 6E extrapolate, I believe is the 6E. So you could take this and you could customize it and add in, if you use different, a different learning model for your lessons. Okay. So here is, again, some quick options here for using Wakelet. So the goal of this session was to be kind of short, kind of bite-sized in terms of giving you some information about Wakelet. Hopefully you learned some stuff that you thought was beneficial, that you thought, hey, I'd heard of Wakelet, but I wasn't sure what it was. And now I'm kind of thinking I could use it, and some ideas that you might actually have for using Wakelet. So I did want to just kind of recap here real quick and make sure that there's a browser extension that you can use. So at top over here, the browser extensions work on Firefox. I'm on Chrome, works there. And there's also an Edge extension as well. Remember, super easy. Sign up, create, and sharing your collections. My personal favorites are that Wakelet is very accessible, and they're quick to share out resources and elevate what's going on in the educator community. So if you have questions, if you're not sure what you're doing and you want to follow Wakelet, they have a Twitter account. They have great tutorials on YouTube. They do host webinars that kind of give you a deeper dive, and you can follow their blog. And on their blog, they have some great examples. So this was a quick bite-sized session. The goal was just to give you an overview and talk about some way that you could use Wakelet. So the goal was to learn about the features of Wakelet and gain those ideas. Hopefully you found that to be beneficial. So I did already drop this link to this presentation with all of the screenshots into the description of the video, so it's there. But I was going to hold for a second to see if there were any comments or questions while I'm online. If not, and you're checking this out later, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a question or comment into the chat. That would be awesome. I'm super excited. This is the first time that this session has been going live to both YouTube and to my Facebook page. So hopefully you found this session valuable and learned a tip or two or gained an idea. I appreciate your time and your efforts here. All right, I got a question here. I love it. This is really cool. I'm going to drop this in here. This was our question. And Andrea, thank you for tuning in. Curious about the Flipgrid option. Have you ever used it? What it does is it actually embeds a Flipgrid response option. So it's built into the Wakelet. So automatically it's there and the students can respond directly into it. Great question. So you would have created, when you go in there, it's like, okay, you want to add a Flipgrid response. I've not done it personally, but I have seen other teachers use it and it's pretty cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and I am going to be running these sessions every day. I was trying to differentiate the time, but I realized the best option might be to just stick with it. So it's going to be the Tech Tips 411 at 2 o'clock on the weekdays between now and the 19th of June. So thanks for those of you that tuned in today. And if you're watching this later on, I appreciate it. If you found this session valuable, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when the next PD is going to be available, and go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate y'all, and thanks a lot. See you on the next one.